It's episode 18 of the Don't Tell Me, Show Me podcast. What's the difference between a need and a want for an athlete? They really want to succeed. They want to achieve their goals. They want to grow. But do they understand their needs? Do they understand the distinction between that? Are they bringing that into their daily practice? That's the topic of this week's episode. Now, I've got Alan Keane and Mark Bennett with me. I have to say, to start with, Mark wants to be on this podcast, but he really needs to be in his bed because he's fighting a cold. So bear with us during this one. But Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot to start with, and then we'll go to Alan for some examples. I know you're big on this topic. What's the difference between a need and a want? Because we've had a brilliant question in from a golf coach in Portugal, which we'll play now.
Hi guys, Neil Connolly from Edge Golf College on the Troia Peninsula in Portugal. Just wanted to pose a question to you if possible regarding how to get our students and get elite performers engaged with the need rather than the want, and how to get them connected to that regularly during the day so that they're not spending so much time watching things on YouTube or phone usages down to a minimum. If you could help with that, that'd be hugely appreciated.
All right. Great question for you, Mark. Let's kick us off. What's the difference between a need and a want for an athlete?
It's huge. It's the underlying, in my opinion, it's the underlying difference between successful athletes, people, and underperformers. So in essence, the want is, I like doing this, I want to do this, I find this comfortable, whatever reason you want to do things, and you'll put them first if you're based on a want process. You maybe only do the things you don't like doing, or you're uncomfortable doing, or you don't think you're good at doing, so you put them off when someone's supervising you, when someone's telling you to do it. The need-centered attitude and approach is, I will commit with the same level of enthusiasm to the things I need to do as the things I love doing. When no one's watching, when things are getting tough, when I don't feel like doing it, my enthusiasm to the need will always trump the want, but the attitude will be as if I love doing it. And that principle of mindset and action is, for me, the defining difference.
Well, that begs the question, how do we actually make that happen? Because that sounds great, but it's much easier said than done for all of us and all parts of our lives. And Alan, you work with high potential young athletes at the national team level who must really, really want to succeed, really want to become professional basketball players, really want to make basketball their lives, but struggle to bring that into their daily habits.
Yeah, I think it's probably the common factor we have to deal with. I've been doing the national team, Simon, as you know, for probably 15 years now, maybe 16 years. And if people were we have different players every year. People ask me, what's the biggest challenge you encounter every year? That's up there in the conversation, like getting their attention and coaching them in a way that they stay focused on the task at hand. Because you basically have 5 players on the floor, and as a team, we have one idea in every single moment that we're trying to achieve. We all have a common desired outcome. And if someone's attention's not on point in that moment, it could be the difference between that's the spoken will that actually did make this work. So coaching attention, it's a big topic of conversation. It's a rabbit hole of a conversation. How do you do it? How have I done it in the past? And I'll start by saying I've just asked the question, Simon. We'll be in the middle of a game. I'll call a player over and I'll say, look, where's your attention going right now? Like we'll highlight it. Where is your attention going in a calm moment? Could be someone shooting a free throw, referees at the table. Mark, come on over. Just tell me, where's your attention going right now? Like reality, no fluff. Is it going on the referees? Yeah. All right. Do we need to reset and go again? So I have a lot of those micro moments in games. Probably more of those than tactical conversations. Some games, if I'm honest.
You're coming with 2 different angles here. Mark, I'm hearing you talk about a mindset, which I think would lead to some lifestyle choices in the moment, a lot of off-court elements to that. And then, Alan, you're talking about focusing on what we need to do, and you're talking about attention on the court. It's interesting you've interpreted the question two different but quite valid ways.
Yeah, they sync. I mean, the point is what we're looking at, and it happens a lot. in things like rugby, football, soccer, hockey, netball, these type of sports, and indeed in the individual, where a lot of the practice is unsupervised, like golf, for example. You may have, when people are coming up to practice, when things aren't going well, they'll want to do something else. They won't put the level of commitment, enthusiasm in. They're going, why are we doing this? Can't we? I love just playing the game. But you go, well, we need to break down this understanding of, how your hips rotating on that defense phase there when someone's coming at you, and we need to go through this. And that's where I think great coaches, and this isn't my language, by the way, I don't even know where it's come from, but someone listening will be able to share, but it's that seeking to understand and then generating responsibility to facilitate that action, that mindset change in the moment. So raising awareness, generating responsibility. We do that by seeking to understand. That coach that Alan's saying in a moment, right, I'm scanning, this person or this team's not on it. They're feeling flat today. We've all seen that. Or things aren't going well. Now they're starting to negative spiral. They're not as committed now. They're not, I'm not seeing that spark and challenge. That's in the moments where we go, okay, how long do I leave before I step in? And how can I get them back to why are we here? What was success for this? Fantastic opportunity now to test our commitment to our goal now. These moments are priceless in practice because we can't replicate them. When things aren't going well in the match, we can't stop the match. We've got an opportunity now. Things aren't going well. What can we do about this? We can choose now. We can choose to take the easy road, or we can choose to take the road that's going to give us an opportunity to challenge ourselves to get better now. So which way are we going to go? What's it going to look like? Whatever language you think is appropriate at that time to stimulate them. And it may be a one-to-one on the sideline to saying, okay, what's going on here? Talk to what's happening over there. And if they can't connect it, just say, well, I'm not seeing the best version of you today. I know you're better than this. Okay, so what can we do now to get your attention? I've done it before where they think, we've got an hour left in this session and I'm just not with it. It says, okay, so what can the next 1 minute look like? What would exceptional look like in this 1 minute for you within your role? Okay, can you show me that now? Give me a minute. I can do that, coach. Okay, bang, back out again. And all of a sudden now we're getting, so I think that's judgment of a coach, and that boils back to Alan's point. Need-centered is when I'm supervised as a coach, I'm supervising them. It's my craft of how can I connect them so they're not reliant on me, but in that moment they need me to connect back in to them taking ownership. But also then when I'm with them, how can I have an influence when I'm with them that ripples when I'm not with them? And I see that as that coaching craft, and Alan's just shared an example of what that would look like.
So also, let me just layer that, please, Simon, if you don't mind. Mark, what I've seen you do really well down through the years, going back a long time, and we won't mention how many years now, because we'll all feel incredibly old if I do. But, I remember watching you in London with a national team, and just really provoking the players' thoughts about, what do they need to do in order to achieve their desired outcome. And all of them had a desired outcome of playing well, winning, making the team for the European Championship. It was all performance-based desired outcomes. And I remember you having them on the court, in the middle of the basketball court, in UEL, you say, right, step over this line here now if your answer to this question is yes. And you asked a series of performance-based questions, performance-driven outcome questions. Everyone stepped over the line. Right, let's have a conversation about what you need to do in order to achieve these outcomes. And it was all about wants, not needs. It was all about needs, not wants. But you were very good at articulating the barriers and the obstacles they could fall over in the form of their type of wants. So this was all on box. This was like pre-work. But what that did for me, Simon, Mark doing that allowed me then, in these moments of the game, or in the moments of travel when they're choosing to eat foods that's not going to help them achieve their needs, these are foods they wanted. It just allowed me to actually go reconnect them to that moment on the court where their awareness was raised as to the battle they will have going on throughout this journey of a want versus a need, but reconnecting them back to what they said they wanted with their future with basketball, what they wanted to achieve with basketball. Well, then they needed to make a better choice with the food selection at the airport. They needed to make a better choice with what to do with their phones and so on, and this, that, and the other. And Mark, I think that was a really powerful moment for that group of players. And we ended up, to finish off that story, we ended up in the European Championships that year in North Macedonia. and we were in a very tricky situation around what was available to eat at the hotel we were staying in, and players, gathered themselves. I remember there was a conversation going, just remember, right, we may not like the food. It's not about liking the food. It's about using that food to maximize our performance on the court. And they overcame an obstacle, which was like, I don't really want this food. It's not about a want, mate. We need this food. And it was just a really, and we could join that back to that moment. You led that conversation. So my point being, Mark, I think there's a lot of pre-work to be done here. And it's not, I don't believe it's a one-off hit. It's not a one-session thing. It's an information session that then needs to be kept alive as we go. And I kept your message alive throughout that summer. That's my overriding message.
And here's the important point, Alan, and it links to, in my opinion, it links to the same as the hardware stuff. If we start a journey with them committing to some sort of action, whether that's in the software we're talking about, our attitude, our making a choice, and our level of attitude and commitment to the choice we're making in each moment, unsupervised, supervised, it's the same as if we want to work on some tactic or some physical conditioning, someone needs to get faster or more mobile, whatever it may be, is if we're chasing them, we haven't had the discussion about them deciding that they're going to commit to it. So because we haven't had that discussion at the beginning where they are choosing, we're raising their awareness, yes, but we're asking a series of questions. Go, okay, well, you decide which way you're going to go. Okay, so here's the challenge you're going to face. You're still committed to this. And if they're saying yes, you go, okay, great. Now we can layer the UAEs connected to our lighthouse, etc. These are all scaffolding. But once we've done that, when they don't, as opposed to us chasing them, we can now hold them accountable in a firm, fair and friendly way to what they said they were going to commit to. Now, if we don't do that at the beginning, what we're doing is we've got our visible expectation of what their performance needs to be in behaviors, attitude, communication, commitment, but theirs is totally different. So now we're at this loggerheads where we're continually attempting to get them to do things they've never agreed they're going to do beyond the normal generic, oh yeah, we're all up for this. And we write the nonsense, and I'm saying nonsense just because in my opinion, nonsense is, we're committed, togetherness, blah, blah, blah. All the things go up on the wall at the beginning of pre-season. Absolute nonsense. Unless we say, hang on a minute, how often are we doing this? So what does it look like here? What would it look like here? Okay, now let's go on. If we're already committed to this, if we don't, what are we agreeing we're going to do? What do you need from me as a coach? What are you guys going to do? Okay, now we've got expectations. Are we ready for this? Because we've got to do it when we don't feel like it. Yep, now we're ready, coach. And now we scan for it, as you're saying, Alan, every single time. And then if they don't, then two things are going to happen. They connect it, which is we want the rule of 3, 1 and 2, they reconnect and we're going great, celebrate, but we don't want to keep doing that. Or you're stepping in continually. If it continues as a coach stepping in, we need to have a reset and raise our awareness, go, guys, remind me what we agreed. Okay, what's preventing us? If we set expectations that aren't realistic for us, are we not capable of doing what we said we we're going to commit to, or do we not have the will in the same way we thought we did? Let's decide either we need to reset that, but remember, if we reset these targets of behavior, we need to reset our expectations of success, or what do we need to do differently to prevent it from happening, to align to what we said we're going to commit to over to you guys. And then we have that conversation again. As Alan says, if it's not about the chat at the beginning of the season, it's about making sure that is meaningful and we share the warts and all. But then how do we keep it alive without us taking over, without us micromanaging? And that stimulates, in my view, that stimulates responsibility. That stimulates coach isn't shouting at me and reminding me. Coach is asking me, okay, now I've got a decision. I either continue to do what I do, but now I recognize coach saying, well, we need to reset expectations here, or I'm going to choose to do something differently. And it's back on me again. It's not on coach. And I think that's the defining element.
I wonder too about the role that resistance plays in that, and helping athletes to become more aware of their sources of resistance, of where that's coming from. Because I agree with everything you're saying, Mark. There's a little bit in me just wondering, at some point, you've got to cross that line, like Alan was describing earlier, and you got to make choices and make commitments. But what prevents an athlete, especially a young person, from making that choice? What's the resistance? What's holding them back? Because I think if we're too harsh on, well, you just have to decide. You just have to decide and commit. I think we need to be a little bit more nuanced in that. I know you would be in a one-to-one, but I'm conscious here with how we're helping coaches here is not, we don't want to create these kind of ultimatums for players, but at the same time, how do you eliminate the gray? How do you get agreement if at some point you don't actually have a kind of binary yes, no, are you in or out choice?
I think what's important is that you are the devil's advocate at the beginning. You're the one going, really? Well, hang on a minute. You know, we haven't done that for the last 2 years. Remember last winter? You're making sure that when they say, and we're going for this, coach, you're raising awareness to the challenges, the obstacles. I call them those what ifs. And we've got our experience where we can raise our awareness to, hang on a minute, we've been here in the past, so what are we going to do differently now? We take them on that journey, but we're back to that point again, that seeking to understand. So if they're not doing it, we have to, in its judgment of, when do we step in and go, okay, so remind me what you agreed, them agreed, not us trying to get them to say what we want to hear. And that's the point of that beginning. Now, if they then connect to, oh, this is tougher than I thought, we're back to seeking to understand, so what's preventing you? And we're back to choices again. This is not an ultimatum. This is, okay, so we've got some choices now. When we seek to understand, they go, no, I want to change, coach. The seeking to understand part is, okay, so what are the barriers? Okay, what are our options? Back to using the ARP, funny old thing that. What are our options? Okay, so what's going to influence the choice? So what are we going to go for? What support and challenges do you need? So I remember at Reading Rockets, we had, do you remember Danny Allen?
Yeah.
And he great guy, very dominant, wasn't great early on when things aren't going his way. Had real barrier with a coach at one point, but I had to have a sit-down conversation with him because he literally stormed out of practice. And I've had permission to share this, by the way, years ago. And he goes, I'm not coming back unless this changes. And I sat down, had a one-to-one with him over lunch, and he said, oh yeah, no, I see what you mean, Mark. I'm ready to come back now. And the first thing I said to him, so what are you going to do differently then? And there was like a pause. He says, sorry, what? I says, well, what are you going to do differently? Because if you don't change, the same's going to happen again. And if you're saying that's what you don't want to happen, what are you going to do differently? And he goes, well, no one's ever asked me that question before. So we had a deep dive in it. We seek to understand. And then once we agreed what that looks like, I said, who do you need to share that with? And he says, sorry, what? I said, who needs to know? And then he realized, well, I've got to tell, team wise, I need to tell head coach. And I said, and who else? Assistant coach, who else? The players. Yeah, every single person. Support, management, doesn't matter. You need to tell everyone. So we agreed that when he came back, he'd get everyone together and he would stand up and he would share with no buts. Okay, this is what I've learned. This is what I want to commit to. This is what I'm going to do differently. And this is the support I need from you guys if you see me doing this. So he had an agreement that he owned with the team of what he needs to do differently and how he's going to get support from them. And he had a transformational change that season by following that process. So this is why I always say it's down to judgment. There isn't you must do this. But if you're seeing someone said they're going to do this and they're not doing it, you've got to decide on the intervention of seeking to understand why. Do you still want it is the first question. If it's yes, okay, so what's preventing you? And now we go into choices. Now, if they go, oh, no, you're thinking about it. No, I'm not going to change that, coach. I'm never going to do my S&C. I'm never going to do the nutrition. Reality is I've tried. I'm never going to do it. It's okay, fine. We just reset our expectations. That's fine. But you can't have this with this behavior. If you want this, you need this behavior. So if we learn this, that's fine. But we need to lower this as go. I'm cool with that. But let's agree which way you're going to go now. And then it's back on them again. Then you reset the UEs, share it with who people of influence, and you commit to it.
I think also, Simon, can I just chime in there a little bit?
Yeah.
Just for the listeners, this isn't absolute one way for the entire team. Your question, Simon, was like, what if you met with some resistance? Well, they're ready when they're ready, and their level of where they're at now, and someone else in the team could be there, and they're nailing what Mark just said. But this one, their needs are slightly. They're not all going to have the same needs. And, for us as coaches, like one of the first things we should be doing really in some form is starting to gather information about what their motivations and needs are for coming through the door each week, and accepting that there may be different motivations and different needs. Now, do you have the skill set as a coach to coach their needs and motivations? And then, and also, if you coach through a place of care, remove the motivational displacement or embrace the motivational displacement factor of I'm going to coach their motivation needs, not my desire for their needs, and be very clear there. Now, Mark, I've heard you speak on a previous podcast talking about, what if you have that range of motivations and needs in one team? Like, how do you manage that? And, how does that work? And I recall you talking very well about, the coach asked you a question, do I come down to the level of the lowest motivation need in that group, or do I coach it at the highest level motivation of the needs for that group? And maybe you could speak about that, because I think that's reality for coaches, guys. I think that's reality. It isn't like I had a national team. Let's not forget this now. I gave a really bad example for a lot of listeners. I had the best 12 players in the country, 17, 18 years old, who all stepped over a line and said, I want to be a pro basketball player. I want to be the best player I can possibly be. We've got a lot of listeners with teams that don't all have that desire. Mark, do you want to share your response, if you can recall, or speak on that concept?
Yeah, so that's a whole podcast in itself. So we'll do a short version. So Simon isn't going, what? Come on, pineapple, Mark, pineapple. And if you don't know what that means, listeners, you need to listen to the previous episodes. I think really the key is there's a lot of lack of awareness in the behaviours and attitudes at all levels. So as you know, Alan, Simon, I've worked at the most elite level, all the way down to grassroots age groups and in rough neighbourhoods, homeless schools in London and indeed in America. And there is always mixed groups. So even at the elite of the elite, there is mixed groups in attitude and behaviours and capability and potential. Now, the bandwidth is smaller than some of the grassroots and age groups that you may be listening. The reality is we need to make sure every athlete understands and has empathy of others in that team. So, and if I look to extremes, the example is when we start to connect together of a team that maybe you've got people that I'm just coming here because I want to play. In the worst case, you might go, well, I'm getting dropped off by dad because he wants to play golf, and this is he dropped me off here and fixed me up. And you're going to have the other end where you go, oh, I think I can make it. I love the challenge. Give me whatever you need, coach. I'm ready. So you need to have that in one team. So what we need to do is when we're setting that lighthouse up at the beginning, we need to understand is that, look, everyone's different. Everyone's when they turn up. You might have had a great day. You might have had a bad day. Some of you really want to be a professional athlete. Some of you just like playing the game. There'll be a mix in between. So what we've got to understand is when you are committed and you want like everyone to commit the same as you, understand that's not going to happen in reality, but understand how can I get the best out of them without expecting something that they're never going to give me. So what empathy would that look like when I'm on the pitch in practice, and back to what does that look like as opposed to just a generic. But at the same end of the scale is you go, look, if you just want to play, we got to earn the right to play, because there's some people who understand that and support. We need to have a bit of a breakdown at times, but also I don't want to stop that person that believes they're going to be a professional and wants to do everything they can. So how can I help them in these moments? So now we're getting people to understand, look, excellence is doing and being the best you can with what you have in the present, based on your aspirations and commitment and those agreements. But when we're in a team, the whole principle of the team is how can I get the best out of others around me, but understand they're going to have different desires, different aspirations. But what would be unacceptable is me to hinder theirs. Whether that's me getting frustrated about others not committing the same, I need to understand, well, they're on a different path than me, but how can we work together? But also when I'm looking up and go, I just want to play, and this person is so much more committed to me, I don't want to hinder them. So what does that look like for us? And that is a conversation in reality that most coaches need to have. And I think too many coaches avoid that conversation because they want to get stuck into a practice session. And we're going, this is where the magic's going to happen. This is where so many frustrations you're going to have to spin plates and put out fires in the next year could be reduced by just having this type of conversation.
Also, Mark, I think, you look at the question that coach posed us at Simon that we showed at the start of this podcast around the players' needs and wants. I think a healthy starting point is the coach stepping back. And again, I'm going to an element of care and coaching. The coach stepping back and saying, right, well, what's my motivation? Because I think too often we actually cannibalize the wants or needs of a player to serve our own wants and needs as coaches, particularly head coaches. And I'm talking at all levels. Even if you think about the style of play that a team embraces, well, where does that come from? Has that come from, is that serving the needs of the ability of the players? And we talk about capability combinations. Do we change style of play to suit that group that's on the court? Or are we engaging in a style of play that suits the needs and motivations and desires of the coach, not the player? So I think there's a very, it's a long journey for sure, but I think coaches need to start there. And that's probably pre-season work, that's out of season work. It's really difficult to say this in the midst of coaches starting new seasons in our country, in football, basketball, rugby, and all team sports. But actually, you could be in dangerous territory unknowingly, with all good intention, and you hear something like, I'll just finish, and you hear something like this: oh, how do I help my players to stop playing the PlayStation, make better choices with food? And, well, hang on a second, should you stop them doing that first of all? Like, why should you stop them doing that? Do they have a desire to be better than they currently are, or do you have that desire for them to be better than they currently are? So I think we got to be very careful here, because we're on dangerous territory unless we do some real work with ourselves as coaches first.
Now, there's, just to finish, add some texture to that, and then we got another layer we need to add to this. It's critical to the question. So the layer on your point, Alan, is I use the language performance athletes, leisure athletes, and it's based on behavior, not capability. So if we know a leisure athlete is someone that's just going to turn up and do the work, but they're never going to do anything that they need to do unless they enjoy doing it outside nutrition, sleep training, watching video, whatever it may be. But you've understood that's where they are. You keep the door open for them to say, okay, that you can switch performance anytime, just let me know, and keep engaging the people that do, but don't have false expectations and get frustrated when you recognize and they recognize I'm leisure. Now, here's the caveat, and another layer to that, Alan, is that baseline. So what you talked about there is put the combinations out, put them in a competition environment. That's your reality. Don't set any different expectations. That's what you're working with. Okay, how can I build from there with the people I've got? That's reality, and that's why I've got that leisure, learn it, perform it, challenge it phases in practice. So the challenge it phase is going to tell you reality, and then that's where your expectations should be. Now, another layer, Simon, that's critical is, and I've seen this every year, I see this, by the way, and it's not something that I can intervene with. I've got to let it happen, because it happens without any intervention. You can't stop it. Whatever word you say, I've never been able to stop it. You will say to an athlete, and I've seen at England rugby level, Premiership football level, NBA level, golf level, you will see players that you're saying, look, I can see you're not committing to your nutrition and your macros. I can see you're not committing to your prehab work, which is the preparation stuff to prevent injury. Your S&C, I can see a golfer, maybe you're not putting your energy into your short game as you need to get where you need to be, that you've told me you need to be, and here's their answer. And they may not say it to you, but internally, some will say it, internally go, yeah, but I'm winning, I'm getting results, I'm getting picked, it's a team sport, doing what I'm doing, so why do I need to change? I'm on a winner, I don't need, it's working for me. Now, you as a coach and outsider, we look at it and go, yeah, now it will be, but you're not. There'll be a kid or a person or an athlete, an adult somewhere that's competing for your spot, that's doing everything and might be similar to your potential. They're going to trump you, but guess what? The first time you're going to meet might be in 5 years' time. And they've had 5 years worth of investment that you're not. Now, it doesn't matter what you say. They go, sometimes they won't change until all of a sudden they're not getting picked. They're not winning anymore. And then they go, oh, my God, it's not working anymore. And at that point, you never do the I told you so. You go, okay, well, let's look at where we can enhance what you're already doing. Okay, let's start breaking that down. And that's why I use the critical path and the database and nutrition, performance, technical, tactical, all those elements, mindfulness. And then we start okay, so now we start focusing on a priority that can enhance what you do. And then we go back to the choices point, expectations, behaviors. And sometimes it takes them to realize, that thing you told me 5 years ago or a year ago, I see what you mean, coach. Because now I'm recognizing I can't get where I need to be, keep doing what I was doing. I now realize I was in a small fish pond and it was working for me. Or my age, bio banding, whatever it may be, I was bigger, stronger, faster. Guess what? They've caught up with me. I'm no longer the fastest, strongest, or the fittest. So I think that is another layer we need to connect with.
Well, guys, we're coming towards the end here. First of all, Mark, I'm going to put you out of your misery and give you the attribution of that quote, seeking to understand. I believe that's habit 4 of the 7 habits of highly effective people from Stephen Covey. Seek first to understand.
To be understood.
Then be understood. Something like that. Irony being that as you were talking about that, instead of listening to
the other one, Simon,
saying,
the raising awareness, generating responsibility, that one's from somewhere as well. I can't remember where. It's not mine.
I was just saying the irony is, as you were talking about it, I was, rather than listening to understand what you were saying, I was listening to respond, getting ready to give you the attribution of that quote. Could I just finish with a quick story? Last night, my teenager was not going to bed, so ended up sitting on her bed with her at 11 o'clock at night, asking her, tell me more about this. She needed to go to bed, but she wanted to stay up. I said, well, why do you want to stay up? Because eventually it got to where I don't actually want to I don't want to be asleep. Why don't you want to be asleep? Well, I don't want to get up tomorrow. Why don't you want to get up tomorrow? Well, first period, I've got English and I was off a day last week and I missed a test and I don't want to have to go speak to the teacher about resitting that test because I think she's going to ask me why I was off. I don't want to tell her why I was off. I don't want to have that conversation. I've just given you the 1 minute version. It took more like 45 minutes to get to that. So it turns out that the resistance was the discomfort that she was projecting she might feel in this conversation happening the next morning. And that was tracing all the way back to not going to bed as a way of avoiding potentially that conversation. And as we unpacked it, she realized it was obviously quite irrational because you can't change time apart from anything else. And then as we sort of summarized it together, okay, she was able to overcome that resistance. And this is why coaching is so hard, because you've got to include so much context, so much understanding of the people you're coaching, just so that you can get them onto the court at the right time and in the right state, so that you can then teach them your sport. And this is why coaching is so hard and it seems getting harder by the year. So thanks for breaking that down. Before we finish, is there anything else either of you want to add or respond to?
I think if I was to do an outro of everything we shared there, I think what's really important for coaches that listen and parents, managers, is really seek clarity to make sure everyone's aligned to the same lighthouse and what the behaviors they're willing to commit to facilitate that. And if the behaviors at the time you don't believe facilitate the lighthouse, the goal, you just need to go, well, we need to reestablish our goal because it's not aligned. Let's set ourselves up for success, but also make sure you play the devil's advocate early on because everyone's motivated in that room. And then once it's agreed, then you've got to be scanning for it. And as I said at the beginning, it's relentless and patient, reconnecting, not taking over, but seeking to understand, see we need the adjustments, where's the support, where's the barriers, and continue to commit to what the agreement is, even if the agreement changes, and then set your expectations based on that agreement, not something totally different.
Alan, anything you want to share?
I'll finish up by saying, Simon, I'll finish up by saying I think coaches should be careful not to judge players based on their current behaviors around, okay, you're a leisure performer. They might, so you're inconsistent with your effort and everything you do is based around your want, not a need. And I would say coaches pump the brakes on those judgments and start to ask yourself a question, well, how can I influence this? Does this player want to be influenced? What's my skill set? And how can I take them on a journey where they do cross over from leisure decisions to more performance-based behaviors around commitment to better choices? And Because I find it quite frustrating when I hear coaches critique players. And I think if you're actually aware, really hyper aware here, you're critiquing your own coaching to a certain degree. And often is the case. And I would encourage coaches just to pump the brakes and reserve judgment and consider, actually, does this player understand what leisure behaviors are? Are they aware of what they're doing? Are they aware of, and do they have an understanding of what performance behaviors are and what they can do to enhance that player's performance on the pitch, on the field, on the court, on the course, whatever? And then can I take them on a journey with that? Because too often I find we're putting players in boxes and it's just not fair. There is no box, there's opportunity. And then there's acceptance from the coach that actually the player wants to be a leisure player. That's fine, no problem. I can cater for your needs, but not in this environment. It might have to be another environment. This player wants to be performance, but is making leisure behaviors. All right, I can help that player too. So that would be my parting words.
Okay, thanks, guys. Alan's dog needs and wants a walk, so we're going to have to finish just now. Shout out to our previous episode 17 with Rob Tarr. Brilliant interview with a Paralympic wheelchair rugby head coach, packed full of insights. If you're interested in the concept of capability combinations, how to put together onto the pitch or the field or the court a combination of capabilities that can be really successful. Well, wheelchair rugby has rules built into it that require that kind of thinking. So if you're interested in that concept, jump on episode 17 because Rob shared the benefit of his Paralympic experience. That's us done, fellas. Thanks very much, Mark. Thanks, Alan. And thanks to everyone for listening and watching.
Don't forget to like, subscribe. Get the message out there. There may be someone that hasn't connected to this these conversations that you could really help, and that link, subscribe, remind, may help them connect. So let's get the message out there. And if you've got a question we haven't talked about yet, please share.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Bye.